Hello. One of the main things I'm often asked is, how can I stop my dog from pulling? Well, to me, this is the wrong question. The question should be, how can I get my dog to walk nicely beside me? So it's not so much about stopping the dog doing something, but actually getting the dog to want to walk near you and to learn how. What we do, we we get cross. Let's face it, we do get cross. We try everything we can, or we might keep stopping when the dog pulls, so the whole walk is stop, stop, start, stop, start. So frustrating for us and so frustrating for the dog. Well, if we look at this, analyze this, there are two separate sides to it. To pulling. One is simply that the dog wants to get somewhere, the dog is so used to being pulled back to you, he actually thinks this is part of the walk, this is how it's done. But there is such an emotional side to it. The dog may be already very stressed, very hyperactive, very excitable. The whole thing of the walk is too much. A dog wants to get somewhere, it wants to chase something, it wants to sniff somewhere, and you want him to walk next to you. It might be fear activated. If he sees another dog or a person, his answer might be, attack is the best form of defense. So there's a big emotional side to all this. So that is one part of it. Now the other part is the technique itself. Well, anybody can work on the technique. So I would separate the two things. With technique, of course, you've got also two different situations here, really. You've got puppies who you can start off right from the beginning, which is great. And then you've got other dogs, which the people would perhaps describe it, they'd like their dog to be cured of pulling. We'll look at a minute at the technique by itself, especially where it involves puppies. But this also can involve the seasoned pullers, if you take it back to the beginning. But the other side of it is that probably most important, because walking quite near you on a loose lead, if the dog is calm and happy, isn't difficult. It's not hard at all. So it is the emotions in the dog that need dealing with most, and that is going to be quite individual to you, and they need to be looked at separately, particularly the thing about being reactive to dogs and all the other things. The bottom line really is, you don't often see a dog that's just mooching along quite near you on a loose lead, sniffing on the ground and doing his own thing, to pulling wildly at another dog and wanting to chase cats. The two things are sort of separate. So how I would approach loose lead walking, first of all, if it was a puppy, I would forget about equipment altogether to begin with, and I would teach the puppy, that walking around near me was nice. I'd walk away from him, I'd perhaps make a little noise, pat my leg, call him gently. He'd come to me, and when he came to me, because that's where I want him to be, I would actually give him a little reward, probably by my foot. Maybe in his mouth, but probably by my foot. That's really good. Then I'd walk off again away from him and do the same thing. And very soon, you'd find that everywhere you walked, puppy would actually be walking with you, maybe stop off to have a sniff, and then come back to you. Well, that is exactly what you want when the lead's on, isn't it? So the next step is, with a puppy, to introduce the equipment. Now, I would prefer a harness every time. For a puppy, in a way, it's going to grow quite quickly. But here is an example. I use a perfect fit harness on a slightly bigger dog, or you have big size ones. So how it is, this would be the dog's head here. Okay, so we've got a top bit, a front bit, and a girth, and they all are separate. So they are, as they say, perfect fit. But the thing I find magic about that is it also has, this is the chest, it has a ring on the chest as well as the back. Right, as you're walking around, well, the first thing would be now to get puppy used to the feel of the harness, not associated with the walk. Just let him get used to it. And do your walking fun game with puppy with the harness on. When that's all good, you could put the lead around your neck and carry on. And when everything's going well, just put the lead on the back of the harness and carry on as you are. All right, and do exactly the same thing. So what will happen is you'll teach your dog that walking near you is what is nice. He likes doing it. It's a good place to be, but you have him on the lead just for safety. So that is how I do it with puppy, and of course then you work up from there to going out. It's the same really with a seasoned puller, because you're going to need to deal with this emotion inside him. If he's a very stressed dog, if he's scared of other dogs, if you've got too much energy and all the rest of it. So that's something which has to be dealt with separately. Meanwhile, why not bring it back to home? Why not start walking around the house with the dog, teaching him how nice it is to walk near you, be upbeat, don't be exciting, but be calm and fun and make it what he likes. If he's not particularly food orientated, we could find another way, but food would probably be the easiest, because you can place the food where you actually want him to be. So do it around the house. Then when he's really good around the house, go out into the garden. If he's a dog that is wildly excited and starts pulling the minute he goes out of the front door of the gate, well, do our little game, walking game, in and out and in and out and roundabout, in and out. Do lots of short sessions and get him used to it. So you're going to get the technique of the walking. There are a few tricks. One trick I like, with the harness, I use a lead, which has two ends on it. It's a training lead, and you've got a hook on both ends. So that means that one can be hooked to the back of the harness and one on the front. Now, one trick I find which works very well if you have a seasoned puller and you're practicing around the house, maybe round just down the road, is to put the lead on the front only. You will find that the dog tends to follow the lead, whereas when it's on the back or on a collar, it goes tight and it almost starts off a game of tug. The dog goes forward, you pull back, which makes the dog go forward more. Try the lead on the front. When you go for walks properly, try front and back, but don't walk the dog so much from the back as from the front. And then I think you'll find a mixture of the dog finding that being next to you is really rewarding. You're not getting cross, you're not stressed, because of course your own stress is adding to the whole experience. I remember years ago, it must have been about 30, 40 years ago, I had a little dog, and I can remember getting so angry with the poor little thing because she would keep pulling. And I have to admit, I went to training class at the time, that's what they taught you, keep correcting. And this poor little dog must have had miserable walks. I feel guilty and terrible to this day. If I now went back in time and took the same dog for a walk, I would guarantee she'd be walking nicely in about 5 minutes. So, sort of to recap a bit, we're talking about loose lead walking here. There are 3 kinds of lead walking really. One is heel work, where you want the dog to walk nicely next to you. Well, that's easy. You can easily patch that on as a trick once you've got loose lead walking down, if it's crossing a road or somewhere narrow. And the other, of course, is a long line for when you're out. So I would say while you're working on loose lead walking, don't do any more fighting with the dog on a tight lead. Go somewhere, use a long line, or somewhere you can let the dog off while you are working on the technique. Because from now onwards, the rule has to be no more correction, no more pulling back. Be encouraging. Happy walks.